they've been educated through such platforms. So this platform is open, I think, is actually open to all of us, anyone who's doing education. If you want to maybe teach Kenyans more about agriculture or anything else, because we are delivering this, about 22,000 of them to the TVETs. As we deploy them, and this is running, most of these are actually running on Windows, you can engage with Konza and you onboard your application, or rather, which now, that means you have an opportunity to train over 100 students, because even this being taken to schools, of course, this will be shared by at least 5 students because classes run the whole day. So it's a platform that can be used to drive the Kenyan agenda, and also education. So the other one which we are doing is the automating of the cabinet that I mentioned, that helps us to go paperless, and also this is similar to the previous. So due to time, the presentation is quite brief. And even this being in technology, we ensure that we have security in all layers, all the way from the bare metal to the application. So that's it. Any questions are welcome.
Yeah. So I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Mike at Dtti Lab. So the question is, can any customer host the applications or the servers at your data center, or is that a government data center?
No, it is, any customer can onboard in our data center.
Even private sector?
Even private. That's why even when it comes to the cloud, for example, we have different resources for the government and for the enterprise for compliance, and also co-location.
And if you don't mind me asking, how competitive are you compared to the other guys, iColo and...
We are very competitive. Remember, like for us, we are there as an enabler. So even with other data centers like iColo, we are in talks with them to be able to partner and collaborate. Mainly, you find that organizations have to be compliant in terms of having a disaster recovery, and the data needs to be in different geographical locations. So for some customers that are hosted in Nairobi, it's an opportunity for them to be hosted in Konza, that's in a different geographical location, and vice versa.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Boyd. That's Konza City. I know most people used to think Konza is just a myth or a story in the air. He's proved to you that it does exist and that they have so much service to offer. And it's a joy to have them. They've been with us the whole entire journey. But now I'd like to call upon somebody who sacrificed their holiday, their own break, and that is Mr. Jack Ngare. Jack Ngare represents Google. Karibu sana.
Great. I do not have a presentation with me, and I'd like to just make 3 observations first. The first one is apologies from Michael Murungi, who heads up Google Government Affairs. He's actually the one who's supposed to be here, but because I have a good relationship with Gordon, and I think a lot of the things they're doing are quite noble, I'm here. So I am in the office of the CTO for Google. I'm a technical director there, and I'm not really a government person, so I may go off script a little bit, but please, bear with me. Sometimes engineers do that a lot. The second observation I want to make is there's a form you fill in Google when you want to speak in an event, and as soon as I said there are a couple of government people and quasi-government organizations that will be there, it changed the approval process. They had to look at what you're going to present, how you're presenting, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it. And so I chose not to have a presentation just in case some of you take photos of what I'm going to present. And then so I had to show. So I can do plausible deniability in these days of deep fakes. I can say that wasn't me who was there. So sorry, Prof. Yeah. I'm speaking about what we're doing with counties, but I'll deviate slightly and just talk about three main topics. And the first one is, having grown up in Kenya, which is largely an agricultural-based economy, 40% thereabouts. There are a couple of imperfect truths we know of. And when I say imperfect truths, it doesn't mean that it's false. It's just that it's not the full story. And the first one is that you have smallholder farmers who make up the predominant demographic or economic activity of farmers in the country. And the second one is that most of our agriculture is rain-fed, so we are more susceptible to changes in climate, etc. And the third one, which is quite interesting, is that the majority of the farm type organizations and small-scale farmers believe strongly in influencing agriculture through the deity. In other words, you go to church, you pray, and things will work out for you very well. And that is actually, partially what a lot of folks tend to believe. And the fourth one is really the broker commands the market across large swaths of Africa. So you have the producer, but the person who actually yields a lot of the benefit in terms of getting the supplies to the markets, etc., would probably necessarily be the brokers. Now, I say the imperfect truths because sometimes that's not necessarily the whole picture. But, that's not a Google view. It's kind of an African who lives and works here and how we see, agriculture in this part of the world. But what does this mean then to technology enhancement with making an impact in agriculture? For decades, we have toyed around with so many types of technologies. And to a large extent, they're seen as amplifiers of what the capabilities of farmers are or in the agricultural sector should be like. So it is not that it'll change necessarily what is going on, for example, attitudes, behaviors, beliefs in farming. What it'll most likely do is take those and amplify the capabilities of farmers across the continent. And that is a big part of what we strongly believe in Google. How do you take the technology that we have and that are used by the Walmart or the US military and scale it down to an affordable cost that can be used by the farmer sitting in Karatina, for example? And that is how we envisage that the technologies we use and customize them and democratize them for the counties should actually be adopted. And so, conscious decision by a lot of big organizations, not only us, is that let's hire more people from the continent so that you can take an infusion of what the real life scenarios, the ground truths of how the technology can be adopted with what is the reality of what big tech companies see. And already we're seeing a lot of traction through this. For example, the first call with Gordon, I mentioned that I was working with farms in Indonesia, and now we are working with farms in Ghana for palm oil. And the idea was to use satellite data. I saw in one of the presentations, people are using Google Earth Engine data sets to basically push information and gather more insights into things to do with sustainability, the supply chain, so delivery and logistics of the palm from the farm all the way to the closest milling station. Is it optimized? Is the route also well graded? And what are the possibilities that if next week there'll be a flood, what are the alternative routes that the logistics chain can take? And this is somewhere that's remote. And so using those sort of earth sensing and data sets that we have as a company, now bring it down to a local level. And beyond that, making it as an affordable tool that supports agriculture and supports a lot of the things that organizations such as the people in this room are trying to do. Because a big part of what we think is to build the right kind of technology is one thing, to make it impressive is another thing, but also to make it sustainable in terms of cost and make sure that organizations and the farmers can actually afford this sort of technologies to amplify their capabilities is quite important for us as an organization. The other thing I want to mention is also working with the counties. So for example, Murang'a County, we're looking at things to do with using something called plus codes. One of the key problems in terms of service delivery across counties is that there's no physical addressing system. And I know different counties have been really trying to solve this problem one way or another, but because we don't know where you are, and GPS coordinates are like what? I think like 16 digits. They're really long. It's impossible for them to be stored somewhere in an easy and accessible way. And so Google came up globally with something called plus codes that pretty much maps every single area on the planet, and you're able to get a location using some 4 digits. And it's combined alphanumeric plus a few other salient features, such as the floor, etc., or you're on. So we are seeing a lot of changes happening. We ran a pilot last year with the Kisumu County, and it's really bearing a lot of fruit in terms of getting to know where, for example, fishermen will identify on the lake where the most likely position of the fish are in a certain period of time, or using some sort of temporal data. And so we are working with other counties, to map out farmlands and give them that sort of physical addressing system. And all this is available on Google Maps. And then productivity tools, and as well as sustainability. A big part of what we focus on now is also making sure that our farms are sustainable. And so providing them with things like carbon credits and making sure that we can track those, so that when a small farmer gives his produce to an exporter, they're able to give their traceability, they're able to give a lot of information about what the carbon footprint is like. And these are all ideas that have been Africanized. So a lot of folks like myself who take these huge technologies and then scale it down to a meaningful level that can actually be afforded by smallholder farmers or by organizations that are supporting farmers. Now, I think that's the long and short of a lot of things that we are working on as far as an organization is concerned supporting counties. I just want to also speak in my view around what are the future of technologies that will look like, and what are the things that a lot of organizations are focusing on. I think of late there's a lot of chat around ChatGPT and a lot of technologies, and I'm sure someone's going to ask me in this room, what does that mean to you? Well, if they do kill, I'll come for a job. But anyway, but we have to appreciate some the new technologies that are coming up. And for some of us who have been on this for a long time, see it as an evolution. So if you recall evolution theory, there's something called a Cambrian explosion, where some people believe that all of a sudden the world appeared. And some people say, no, that's not the case. There's a step-by-step movement towards where we are today. And so for people like us who have been in technology for a long time, we always see it as an evolution, more like it. I don't know how many of you work. I had quite a number of data scientists here because I suppose that's the specialization here. So if you recall, some of you use machine learning tools, and you had the recurring neural networks that are quite efficient in processing natural language processing, as far as natural language understanding and natural language generation. But they had certain drawbacks. If you ever use some of those models, you notice that, for example, they will not be able to take a huge chunk of text and process them. You have to break it down, the model, into pieces. And so if I take a simple example, if I said, Felix is a bright young man, and then the next paragraph, I say, today was really bright. A recurring neural network most likely will think I met Felix because it associates those two, together, whereas there's more context towards it. And so forth. You have, in images, the most likely use of models is convoluted neural networks. So they had all limitations. But in 2017, and some of you may have already read this, there was a paper that was released by Google, Google Brain, actually, to be specific, and it's called Attention is All You Need. And that paper, if you don't have it, please Google it. And I guarantee you, every time I say Google, I'm not advertising. I'm actually just telling you Google it. And some of you have already read it, and it's quite an interesting paper. And they said that, you know, rather than have recurring neural networks that struggle with huge amounts of text, then you could actually have something we call transformers. And transformers were really adept in ingesting huge amounts of text, and were able to do something we call attention. And attention is in two phases. Attention means you're able to understand the context, so you have a huge amount of data or text or images, and then you show it one set of paragraph, it'll associate it with the next one, and it'll be able to understand the whole, learn the whole sets of data and produce for you something that looks almost human-like. And then you have the second part, which is self-attention, which means that sometimes in languages, you know, you have to also understand the context it's used. So for example, you have languages like French, where you have to make sure that there's some sort of gender in it, you know. So it was able to do that quite well. And so then it created an explosion. That one paper created an explosion of so many startups, so many organizations that were now using transformers to build machine learning capabilities and AI tools. And so that's why you see now ChatGPT, and there are many others that are coming up, including, you know, Google's own tooling that's going to be released, I'm sure, at some point. What does this mean for us? I think for a lot of you organizations, what transformers and a lot of these technologies have done is built a strong platform. So if you think about it, we call it horizontals in technical speak. It's built a strong horizontal. Now, what we're looking for is there'll be lots of organizations and startups that are building verticals on it. So whether it's cancer detection, whether it's predicting seseflies in a more efficient and fast manner. I mean, I see some of the algorithms that I've seen are able to spit out information within, you know, something like 1,000 flops within a couple of seconds. You know, I mean, it's less than milliseconds. And so it's really amazing the quantum leaps that all these tools are doing. It does sound a bit incredible sometimes. You know, I always say that AI and machine learning, you know, is that tool. It's that hammer that promises to make all problems nails, you know, because you go knocking them all, you know. But at the same time, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunities here for all your organizations to adopt some of these technologies and build verticals on them. And so you have a lot of cloud capabilities that are coming in here, and you should explore them. It will be quite useful in terms of driving value to whatever works you're doing right now. The last thing I want to just make a mention is that we are always going to be a we're always going to be a multi-cloud company and country, etc. So, you know, our friends in Konza, you know, invest in Konza. You know, put your workloads there. You know, as you said, there's disaster recovery, there's lots of other things that need to happen. So put your workloads there, put your workloads in Google, in AWS. We strongly believe there should be an open cloud and that all data should sit everywhere, and use capabilities where you feel it's cheaper or they do a comparative better job. You know, it's not always that you have to put your eggs in one basket. But more importantly also, you know, support local organizations when they want you to, you know, push their workloads there. Thank you.
I know you have a million questions for Google. Please, as few as you can, you're welcome. Anybody with a question? There's one that somebody had about satellite systems, and Google came in to talk. Now is your moment. I think they're bored with you, Mr. Jack. Or rather, they're scared of you, one of those two. They know, yeah, that's what it is. So this is the physical Google, not just the virtual that you kind of use every day. So feel free to interact with him. He's a really nice guy. He used to work for Microsoft, so he knows all ends. From Microsoft to Google, that's him. So Jack, thanks for your time. By the way, he's on holiday, so for him to sacrifice to be here, it was an honor. It was an honor. So asante.
When Felix calls, I say, how high should I jump? You know? Thanks.
Thank you so much. Because in interest of time, Carol, tafadhali, thank you for your patience. It's a joy to have you.
Get it? Where did you save it? Where did you save it? It's okay. It's not yet. Is it sharing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been rigged 4 times.
Sorry. Sorry.
And but that's hot air. Don't worry. Okay, so I was supposed to present 2 hours ago, but I have another meeting the next less than 30 minutes. So I might spare you some times, and then you can ask your questions. Well, I have 2 badges. For a reason, I'm representing CalRO and also representing FAO. But because FAO was not told to present, why did you take away my things? Okay, or you want them to see my face?
Yes, sir.
Okay, they have seen it now. Okay, fine, because I want to move a bit faster. Yeah, so because FAO was not asked to present, so I'll present on CalRO, okay? So, okay, these guys with smart boards. I was told to talk about data and farmer support. So I'm the director ICT CalRO. But a lot of things are going on. So I'm currently taking my postdoc in data science. So I might be going for some less activity in CalRO. You'll see some young men coming up. But I'll still support them. But I'll also be supporting FAO and some digital agriculture. So I'm everywhere. So don't worry. Okay, so I'll talk about CalRO for the day. Okay, so things which refuse to work, you leave them alone. Guys, the slides are not moving. Okay, started moving. I don't know whether I'm the one controlling it or somebody else controlling it. You're controlling or I'm controlling it? I do control. Okay, fine. Yes, so data shows us that agriculture has a lot of potential in Kenya. You can see those figures we are having there, very high figures. But we are food insecure. What's the problem? So there are a lot of problems ranging from input, production, market, climate change, COVID, desert locust. All those are problems which we believe data can solve if well used. So our thinking in CalRO has been data and digital interventions are key. And as a result, how many are sleeping? Okay. Okay. How many are on their laptops? Oh, quite a few. Okay, fine. You'll miss something here. Okay, fine. So we believe that data and digital interventions are quite key. And in that space, we have come with a number of digital interventions which are building around data. So we have a big data center. We are the next Konza, or Konza is after us. But ours is for CalRO and for the agricultural sector. So don't come to us to host you, go to Konza. Because ours is for our use. But we have our Konza in CalRO. Prof, so we have a Konza in CalRO? Yes, we have a Konza in CalRO, at least our one evidence. So we have also built a macro observatory weather platform. I'll talk about it. We try to work with the government, with the FAO, around desert locust warning. We have digitized farmer registration, geotagged farms, and many other things. What has been our key pillars? Who can tell me? Okay. Our key pillar has been technology and data. So we realized that for us to do so, we needed to invest in innovation. And in this case, we looked at the big data and what we're calling disruptive technologies. By the way, one of my names is a disruptor. I'm a disruptor. And the other thing we looked at previously, ICT and data was seen as people who analyze data to give statistical reports. That's what data was known for. And IT were known as people who blow mouses so that they can send emails. And we refused. We said we must integrate ICT into agricultural research and the agricultural data space and be sure that IT is an enabler, is a driver. But again, we deliberate about digitization because agriculture is the least digitized sector in the world. The least digitized sector in the world and the most conservative sector in the world. So it needed disruption and needed to be digitized. And through that, we came up with data products and services, which I'll be talking about. But when you talk about data and digital, you confuse everybody. And we also have a lot of capacity gaps in institutions and the farmers. So we thought that capacity building is key internally and also externally. But again, a number of times I hear people talk in this forum, I ask you, how many farmers are using those solutions? How many? I can tell you I have more than 2 million farmers using my solutions. So I'm going to disappoint some of you academicians because I'm going to talk about practice. I have nothing wrong about academics. I'm one of them. I'm doing my postdoc, but I chose to go the practice route. So again, all these things we're supposed to build them for scale. So not just getting 2 farmers in a corner and you claim that you have a solution for farmers. That is not interesting. Thank you for clapping. So our strategy has been to develop use cases at scale and for impact. So if you don't talk to me about scale and impact, please don't talk to me. So all the use cases that this also we're building is for scale and for impact. So I'm impact-oriented, I'm practice-oriented, and research-oriented. So as I said, we're looking at digitization, innovation, disruption, and agricultural intelligence. Because to talk about climate security, agriculture, food security, we must talk about agricultural intelligence. And that's where data comes in very heavy because you cannot talk about intelligence without data. So I'll be going down now to, yes, so that's our big data platform. I still have many more minutes, don't worry. So what we looked at here was, many times we are in forums like this, and everybody talk about farmer, and everybody has talked about farmer. Some of them, the only time they touch the ground is when they fell down. We had a professor in agriculture, and he said the only time he touched the ground is when he fell down. But he's a professor of agriculture. So even here, we are talking about farmer. But how can you improve the life of somebody you don't know? How can you improve the life of somebody you don't even know where he lives? You don't know his pain points. You don't know what he's doing. You don't know where he is. And they talk about farmer. And the only time you talk about farm is when you go to buy tomatoes. Okay, so we decided here to build a robust farmer database where we're not taking a census of farmers, but we are taking the profile of the farmers, geo-reference the farm, and knowing who the farmer is. So we did about 1.3 million farmers. You heard the president talk about it during Jamhuri Day. And we want to target about 6 million farmers before the end of the year, which are properly geo-referenced. Again, there's a lot of data in agriculture, and therefore we thought it's good to digitize them. But you could also see we have stakeholders there. One of the problems that I think we face in this country, and the moment we do this, we'll have some peace for farmers, is when we digitize the middleman. And I repeat, until we digitize the middleman, farmers will never have peace. So the idea here is to also geo-reference and geo-map other stakeholders, the traders, the input and the output actors, and those of you who went to school and talk about machine learning, algorithms, I learned them, but I stopped learning them. You can come and do for me pattern matching. You can come and do for me distance matrix analysis so that I can match bean farmers and bean traders. I can match the input and output actors with the farmers which are in the right value chains. We can do distant matrix and know how many farmers are around a certain input and output actor. When we do that, we'll digitize the middleman, and farmers will have peace. Because currently, the middleman makes 200% profit, and the farmer makes negative profit. If you're a middleman here, you will stone me, but Paul, that's the truth. Okay, we also realize that there's a lot of opportunity in remote sensing data, and everybody has been talking about remote sensing data. My question then is, how then do you practically use that remote sensing data? And how do you turn it into a service? So I'll show you what I've done. And geospatial data, everything you plan goes to the soil, climate, weather data, market data, because all that is important. So all that goes to my big data platform, where I can do my modeling, my analytics, my data mining. But what's important for me is not all that. Is that how can then I come with advisories or use cases that can advise policymakers? How can I come up with what can advise research, that research can become demand-driven? Sorry to say, for academicians who are here, currently, research is for PhDs and masters. It's not demand-driven. People are after publication. And after getting, I have no problem with masters and degrees, I have them. PhDs, masters, I have them. I've been to university 4 times. But if that master's degree is not addressing a particular pain point or problem, then I have a problem. So how can we then make sure that our research is demand-driven? The extensions need support, whether they're private or public, and then the stakeholders and the farmers and pastoralists. Okay, so what has been our success factor is turning data into a service. In many cases, as I said, we have been focusing on process data, analyzing them with SPSS and Strata and all that to come up with information, which is good enough. Then those who went to school a little longer, like Dr. Keyo here, would interpret that to come with knowledge, and they publish. And they say, I have 10,000 publications in peer-reviewed journal, and I have no problem with that. That's contributed to new knowledge. But what Googles have done, and the Ubers of this world, and they're the richest company in the world, is they have turned that data into a service. That's what. So there's a book called Exponential Organizations. Those organizations are using data, and they're turning data into services. So in Caro, we decided to turn data into services, because you cannot apply data direct to the farm. You can't give a farmer data. A farmer needs a service. Okay. So again, because there are things that public sector cannot do very well, Beryl must have talked about this from the World Bank, we decided to open our door to work with private sector under what we call the 1 Million Farmer Platform. Hey, I'm timing myself. It's not yet. You can't rig me out again. I am timing myself. Okay. So we opened up our door for private sector, where we have now more than 26 agtech startups that are getting data from Caro, content from Caro, innovate around them, and give services to the farmers. So key use cases, practical, this one I'll take very short time, don't look at your watch, is we have quite a number of services. So this is how we your reference farmers. We take the details of the farmer, we pick the GPS coordinate of the farm, and we take the size of the farm. So that if you have a quarter of an acre, why do you do maize? We advise you do maybe poultry, or do something that fits within your ecosystem. Once we know your GPS code, we can tell you the weather forecast, the temperature, the humidity, using satellite data, and then we can advise you what you need to do on your farm. We also find that engaging farmers is key, and therefore built an SMS platform which translates local languages, so we send them weather advisories, agronomic advisories, market advisories, so that they can do the right thing. So from the satellite data, we turned it into a service where we get satellite data, and we built what we call the Kenya Agricultural Observatory Platform. This platform is called KOPs on Play Store. You go download it, it will give you weather forecast up to 98% accuracy, giving you chance and amount. It could be 100% chance that it will rain, but the amount is less than 1 millimeter. It could be 30% chance that it will rain, but the amount is 50 millimeters. So chance and amount was an innovation that we brought in the climate services. And that awarded me a global prize of climate innovation prize win in 2016. because nobody has ever done that in our context. But also, technology can also be exclusive. One of the things I'm doing in my postdoc is looking at social determinants of data science, and one of them is technological exclusivity. Most of the things we talked about here are exclusive to ordinary farmers. So how then do we become inclusive to my mother and your mother and my grandmother and your grandmother, who never went beyond class 3? And therefore, to do that, we built a call center where now they can call. If they don't have a smartphone, they can either listen to pre-recorded services or they can talk to an agent who will answer their pain points or their queries. We are getting more than 150 calls a day. Okay, the last thing we did on 1 minute to go is that from Dr. Keo's publications and from Professor Kringai's publications and from my friend's publications, if you give them to a farmer, they will throw them away. So what we did, using knowledge management, we extract the information that farmers need. A farmer needs to know how to select his site, prepare his land, pre-plant variety, water management. We turn them into demonstrations, audios, videos, illustrations, and then put them on mobile apps. We have 65 mobile apps which farmers can use. We also realized that there's a lot that we can do. So we built a technology called the Data Cube technology, where you can see this is one area, a ward in Nyakach. In 2015, you can see how dry it was. And then in 2017, you can see water body. But in 2019, you see some plant activities going around the water body, mostly planted trees. And in 2021, you can see the place is green, but the rest of the place is becoming more drier and more drier. So we now have a technology in Cairo where we can now use Earth observation data to crunch it and make sense out of it and look at many other aspects of Earth observation data. So, 2 minutes I borrow from you, because after all, you rigged me, and this is important. Now, key lessons for those who are here, who are busy dealing with data. You need to pay me for this advice, but I'll not invoice you. Now, if you want to move in this road, develop a digital strategy, because that will give you a clearer targets and vision. Number 2, turn data into a service. Please excuse me from the big terminology of data. Turn data into a service. What farmers need is a service. Number 3, we must inspire innovation, disruption, and action. Current intelligence is key because of the times we are living in, and that's why we built a farmer database. Capacity building is a must to improve capacities in institutions and in farmer practices. Collaboration is a must because there are things that public sector can do very well, and there are things that only private sector can do very well. Finally, we need finance sustainability model because most startups in Kenya are not making profit. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, I want to refer you back to the ABCDs of data. The ABCDs of data are, number 1, A, is when we digitize agricultural data, we achieve 50% of our problems. When we position the value for agricultural data, we move to 80%. But when we turn data into a service, we are at 100%. And finally, we must provide data as a service and data as a public good. Most people are holding data. They're keeping it in their drawers, in their laptops. The virus will go with it. The thief will go with it. Everything will go with it. But to give it as a public good is asking for your blood. Thank you.
I'm sure we do have some questions. They're most welcome at this moment. Anyone with questions? Yes.
I like studying with this man.
I can now remove my badges.
Because I have stood with him and he has stood with me for a long time. When we faked him into a class to go and do machine learning at Gordon. He went there and then we didn't pay him for his flight and coming back. So we wanted him to remain in Ghana, but he actually decided to come back home. So I want to apologize that that happened, because the knowledge he acquired then has been multiplied multiple times. Whatever happened between him and Gordon was not between me and him, because we continued working. And we continue working, and there is something that he has said. Externalization, or sharing your data as a public good, is the reason we are all here. And I feel very elated that he is actually sharing that as part of his presentation to us. I know he is a very busy man. He's going away for many other meetings, but he has committed one whole day. Boniface hardly ever commits a session, more than a session, in his meetings. So it's my pleasure to actually have had you today for a long time and to eat our food with ram. Thank you very much.
And we are working on the KOP.
Yeah. Any question? Any burning question? Otherwise, yes. Yeah. There are many hands, but maybe you take only 3 years.
Yeah, yes, thank you, and it's a very good presentation. Just a quick one. I know you've said you have to turn data to service. So how often do you update the data about the farm?
Okay, good question. Yeah, because you know, I don't know why they fly me into meetings and give me 10 minutes. You're flown to London and you're given 5 minutes. But it's okay, they pay the ticket. Now, they bring me and give me 10 minutes. So I have to rush about certain things. Okay, on our slide, I didn't talk about, but there's something called crowdsourcing technology, where we have built a two-way SMS gateway, where other than us sending SMS to farmers, farmers also communicate back to us so that we update that data. That's number one. Number two, we have a call center where farmers call back and we talk to them, okay? And we get feedback from that, okay? So the other one, we built a USSD platform, which allow farmers now to go in and be able to reach to us so that we can update that database. What is important is to capacity build the farmers to be able to basically update us on changes that take place. Remember, primary data collection is very expensive. So if I have to send everybody to go and check 6 million farmers, how many of their acreage changes, it's not practically possible. So innovatively, that's why we're using crowdsourcing technology, where we give child farmers opportunity to give us feedback and keep on updating them. One other reason why we built that is one of the things we are doing now, once we know the planting date, then we can now advise you on what to do when, based on your location of the farm, the value chain, the variety you planted, because that's already in science. We built another platform which is called the Selector. You can go, it's on Play Store. Just go Google Carro Selector. You go stand on your farm, you say use my current location, and it will tell you which crop up to the variety you can plant where you're standing. Okay. Did I answer you? I saw you raising up your hand twice when I was talking. Maybe you were not satisfied. Were you satisfied? You are? No. Okay, ask again. See me later. Okay, fine. There was another hand there. Yes.
You talked about having a data digital strategy. Can you please expound on that?
Yes. Again, I've seen this is what you call, I don't know if you've read a book called Technological Blunders. Okay, read about technological blunders. One of the technological blunders is where you try to build a technology without a context. For my European friends who are here, I'm sorry to tell you, many times they have tried to import technologies from Europe to Africa, they never work. For what? Because they don't understand the context. So before you start your data journey, build a data or digital strategy, which will tell you the roadmap, the approaches. I don't have time to take you through that, so there's a process we go through, defining the challenges, defining the solutions, through an ideation process, iterations, implementation, and then optimization, feedback, what is asking me how to get back the feedback. So it's important to build your data strategy, but I'm also a consultant on that. You can see me. I won't mind. I'll charge you half the price. Yes. Another hand which was somewhere there? Yes, my European friend.
Okay, so you have every farmer in Kenya mapped, and you know lots about him, and that unlocks a whole ton of stuff. But what about neighboring countries? does that, if you not, are they using similar systems? Lots of the tools we're talking about are actually being applied across multiple countries. Is there any prospect of a common framework
yes,
or are we going to be siloed?
Yeah, currently we've been only doing it for Kenya because we are Kenyans. But you had some new roles being added to me, which means now we have a chance to help neighboring countries. Currently, we are not helping neighboring countries, but maybe in the coming future, I'll be able to help neighboring countries because you have had some new roles being added to me that give me the space to work beyond Kenya. Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to speak also on the same, I think I've also mentioned that we have used the platform for Rwanda, the SMS platform from Rwanda, which is like the same concept you're talking about, where it's a two-way street. You can send an SMS and you get feedback. What I would just want to understand is how open is the system in Kenya, if let's say we also want to leverage on the same, to use maybe we have a product also that we want to use an SMS platform to share with the farmers, that we can actually use the Kenya SMS system.
Extremely open. It's very open. Kiringai here has my contact. Get my contacts, or I can give you my card, and you can reach out. It's extremely open. Okay. Any banding? Otherwise, I think that also should be enough. Because of time, the other people also have to present. Let me be sensitive to the other people also. So I have to leave. Sorry for this, but I think Ringai has my contact.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. That was. It's a joy to have him. We walked the journey with him for the last, I don't know how many years. So every step of the way, he's critical to us, and so he was very understanding when we had to kind of slot others in. But this moment, I'd like us to take a tea and coffee break to make sure nobody falls asleep and to get you excited for the next last mile. And just to say, 15 minutes would be good enough because we are right on target. Once you come back by 6, we should be done. So thank you for your time. Now we can all have some coffee and some tea. At least, 15 minutes should be good. All right. Yes.